Yes, well, with tensions and dangers rising in the Gulf, top British ministers plan to meet Monday to discuss ways to ensure that ships can sail safely through that region's vital waterways. Captain James Staples is a maritime security expert. He joins us now from Washington. Captain, good to talk to you. And when you hear that audio that we just listened to, with your trained ears, what do you hear? What jumps out?
Well, what I heard was the Navy telling the Iranian military to stand off and not to impede the passage of that vessel, which was in an international trade route, in a traffic separation scheme, which he had every right to be in. And as we could see with the helicopter and also the boats going around the vessel here, we see it impeding, that they are breaking international law as known by the international governance that we have under the IMO and the rules of the road. So this is something that we need to be concerned about if this is what's going to be taking place in an actual choke point, which is treacherous anyways, just as a vessel trying to navigate safely through waters that are close and congested with a lot of other vessels.
You mentioned the choke point and the traffic that goes through this waterway, and we have real-time maps that show with little dots exactly what kind of ships are moving through at any given moment, and it looks like a traffic jam in the middle of Midtown Manhattan. What are the rules of the road? What's allowed when we take a look at this narrow waterway and all of the ships that want to go through?
Well, you have two-way traffic going through, inbound and you have outbound. And this vessel was outbound in a traffic scheme that's a charted traffic scheme on a chart, and she has the right of way to be passing through there. And she's not to be impeded by any other vessel except for maybe a crossing vessel, which is a navigational possibility that can happen. Now, what happens here when we have the military, they're going around the vessel in circles, not following the rules of the road at all. And all vessels must follow the rules of the road, just not large ships. So, you know, we're looking at a ship that's a large vessel that cannot maneuver quite as well as these smaller vessels do, but yet we see them coming very, very close to the ship, and the captain's trying to maneuver this ship safely through there. They're impeding his passage without a doubt. The visibility is usually poor in this area. It's a choke point, and he's got to also worry about other larger vessels that may be in his vicinity that the captain of this vessel does not want to also impede, because he has to abide by the rule. And that's Rule 10, specifically Rule 10 in the call regs.
And those larger vessels that you mentioned, more may be on the way. We hear that the United States is looking to build a coalition of nations that are willing to send some of their naval ships and vessels to that area as protection for Western nations that have tankers and business in that area. What's that going to mean if all of a sudden the United States and its allies start to bring in these giant naval vessels?
Well, again, they're going to be there for the purpose of safely escorting these vessels back and forth. But what happens is the chatter on the VHF radio starts to get cumbersome, and it's very difficult to even hear what's going on out on the oceans as people are trying to communicate with each other. So we're going to see in extenuating circumstances here where we could probably look at a possibility of a collision happening or some type of event that may even risk tensions getting higher.
From a standpoint of world trade and business, we know that there are so many different kinds of goods that are on those tankers, that are on those ships that are trying to make port. What happens to that, or how long until the average person might feel that some of the traffic, some of the things that they'd like to buy in the stores are not on the store shelves because of what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, that's exactly right, not just here in the United States, but let's look at the countries that are up inside the Persian Gulf. You've not only got tankers running through there, you've got commercial ships carrying containers, you've got vessels carrying cars, you've got all types of commodities going up into that area. So we're talking about food and clothing that may not be making it up to those countries, up to Dubai or the UAE or Kuwait, and it's going to cause a problem if Iran keeps up with what they're doing. Obviously, they're breaking the law here. What they're doing, they're actually, the way I see it, is they're no better than the Somali pirates by taking this vessel. The only thing different here is they're using naval assets, and it's a country that should know better than doing something like this. This is not the same situation we saw with the British taking that vessel that the Iranians claim was illegally seized. She was breaking sanctions, and it was known to be breaking sanctions, and then it'll go through the court of law. What we have here is a hijacking from a country that said they just basically wanted to do a security check, which can be done. They can come on board and do a security check, but there's no reason to take that vessel to anchor in waters of Iran and hold that vessel and hold that crew, an innocent merchant crew, seamen that have nothing to do with what's going on, are being blatantly held by a country that should not be doing this.
Thank you, sir. Captain James Staples joining us from Washington. We appreciate you sharing your expertise.
Thank you very much.